day Amanda accused me of sexually assaulting her, my life shattered into 1,000 pieces. One moment, I was Frank Bennett, a promising engineering student with a beautiful girlfriend, a part-time job I loved, and dreams bigger than the Texas sky. The next, I was labeled a predator, my reputation in tatters. Nobody waited for evidence or my side of the story. Everyone just believed her. If you are watching this right now, drop a comment telling me where you are from, and hit that subscribe button to join me on this journey of betrayal and vindication. I met Jessica during my sophomore year at Texas State University. I was studying engineering, working hard to maintain my scholarship, while juggling a part-time internship at Walker Engineering, one of the most prestigious firms in Austin. Jessica was studying psychology, smart and ambitious like me. We clicked immediately at a mutual friend's barbecue, and within weeks we were inseparable. For 2 beautiful years, we built what I thought was an unbreakable relationship. We supported each other through difficult exams, celebrated achievements together, and even started making plans for our future after graduation. Jessica was everything I wanted in a partner: kind, understanding, and fiercely loyal. At least that is what I thought. Our friend circle was tight. We had study groups, weekend hangouts, and holiday gatherings. Everyone knew us as that couple who would probably be engaged before graduation. My coworkers at Walker Engineering loved Jessica too, always insisting she join our happy hours and company events. Jessica came from a close-knit family, and Sunday dinners at her parents' house became a regular thing. Her father, William, was a history professor. Her mother, Laura, taught piano lessons from their beautiful suburban home. Then there was Amanda, Jessica's younger sister, 19, and in her freshman year at our university. Initially, Amanda was friendly and welcoming. She would ask about my engineering projects, laugh at my terrible jokes, and seem genuinely happy that her sister had found someone like me. I worked hard to build good relationships with all of them. Family was important to Jessica, so it became important to me too. Looking back, there were warning signs I should have noticed sooner. The shift in Amanda's behavior was gradual, almost imperceptible at first. About 6 months before everything fell apart, I started noticing changes. Amanda would sometimes make comments that crossed the line from friendly to flirtatious when Jessica was not around. Nothing overt, but enough to make me uncomfortable. "You know, Frank, Jessica is so lucky to have found you. I wish I could find a guy exactly like you," she once said while we were alone in the kitchen during a family dinner. The way she emphasized exactly made me uneasy. Another time, she accidentally brushed against me in the hallway, letting her hand linger on my arm just a second too long. I would always politely step back, change the subject, or find a reason to rejoin the others. Then I started noticing her watching me. At family gatherings, at campus events, where our paths crossed, even once at a coffee shop where I was working on a project. She would quickly look away when I noticed, but it happened too often to be coincidence. I confided in my best friend Tyler about my concerns. "Dude, you need to be careful," he warned. "That is a powder keg waiting to explode. Maybe tell Jessica." But I hesitated to say anything to Jessica. How do you tell your girlfriend that her little sister might be developing inappropriate feelings for you? It would sound conceited, paranoid, or worst of all, like I was somehow encouraging it. So I tried to handle it myself, maintaining a respectful distance from Amanda while staying cordial for Jessica's sake. That strategy seemed to be working until the night that changed everything. Jessica's parents were hosting a spring celebration party at their house. It was a big event, with family, friends, university colleagues, and many students from our social circle. I was running late because I had a presentation at my internship that afternoon. By the time I arrived, the party was in full swing. Jessica was busy helping her mother in the kitchen, so I mingled with the other guests, chatting with her father about an engineering project I was working on. The house was packed, music playing, people spilling out onto the back deck and garden. It should have been a perfect evening. I noticed Amanda early on. She was drinking heavily, more than I had ever seen her drink before. She was louder than usual, laughing too hard at jokes, touching people's arms when she talked to them. I made a mental note to avoid her. Around 9:30, I stepped into the hallway to check some urgent emails from work. The presentation that afternoon had gone well, but my supervisor had some follow-up questions that could not wait until Monday. I was alone for maybe 5 minutes when Amanda appeared. Having fun hiding from everyone, she asked, leaning against the wall. I could smell the alcohol on her breath from where I stood. Just checking some work emails. Heading back to the party now, I replied, trying to move past her. She stepped closer, blocking my path. You know, Frank, I have always wondered what my sister did to deserve someone like you. Her words were slurring slightly. Before I could respond, she lunged forward, trying to kiss me. I immediately stepped back, holding up my hands. Amanda, stop. This is not okay. You are Jessica's sister, and you have been drinking. Her expression darkened. So what? You think you are too good for me? This has nothing to do with that. I love Jessica, and you are her sister. And you are clearly intoxicated. Let me get you some water. I managed to sidestep her and quickly found Jessica in the kitchen. My heart was pounding. Hey, I think we should head out soon. I am pretty tired from that presentation. Jessica looked surprised. Already. But we have barely been here 2 hours. Mom and Dad are about to bring out the dessert they made special for tonight. I did not want to ruin the evening or cause drama, so I reluctantly agreed to stay. But I made sure to never leave Jessica's side for the rest of the night, even when she asked why I was following her to the bathroom. We left around midnight, and I felt nothing but relief as we drove away. If only I had known what was coming. 3 days later, I was sitting in class when my phone vibrated with a call from a number I did not recognize. It was campus police asking me to come to their office immediately. Confused, but not yet alarmed, I went straight after class. 2 officers sat me down in a small room with blank walls and a table bolted to the floor. Mr. Bennett, we are investigating a serious allegation that has been made against you, one of them said. Amanda Pearson has reported that you sexually assaulted her during a party on Saturday night. The words hit me like a physical blow. I could not breathe. What? That is completely false. Nothing like that happened. I desperately tried to explain what really occurred, how Amanda had been drinking and made an advance that I immediately rejected, how I had stayed with Jessica the rest of the night, how there were dozens of people at that party who could confirm I was never alone with Amanda for more than those few minutes. The officers took notes, but their expressions never changed. I could tell they had already made up their minds. One of them even said, "We hear these kinds of denials all the time, Mr. Bennett." As I left the campus police office in a daze, my phone rang. It was Jessica. She was hysterical, screaming and crying so hard I could barely make out her words. How could you? How could you do that to my baby sister in our parents' house while I was in the next room? Her voice broke with each accusation. Jessica, please listen to me. Nothing happened. Amanda tried to kiss me, and I immediately walked away. I swear to you, stop lying. She told us everything. She was so traumatized she could barely speak. I never want to see you again. Stay away from me and my family. Before I could say another word, she hung up. My calls went straight to voicemail after that. My texts remained unread, then blocked. 6 hours after that first call from campus police, I received an email from the university administration. I was placed on interim suspension, pending an investigation. I was not to attend classes or set foot on campus without prior authorization. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of notifications. Someone had posted about the accusation on the university's anonymous confession page. By noon, my name was circulating on every social media platform. No details, just that Frank Bennett had sexually assaulted a freshman at a party. People I had never even met were sharing the posts, adding their own commentary. Always knew there was something off about that guy. Typical entitled engineering bro. Believe women. Always. My boss at Walker Engineering called that afternoon. Frank, we have received some concerning information. In light of the investigation, we are placing you on unpaid leave effective immediately. 9 hours. That is how long it took to lose everything I had spent years building. My education, my job, my relationship, my reputation, all gone based on a lie that no one bothered to question. The worst part of having your life destroyed is watching your support system crumble in real time. I always thought I had solid friendships, people who knew my character and would stand by me. I was wrong. I called Tyler first, desperate for someone to believe me. "I do not know what to say, man," he mumbled awkwardly. "This is serious stuff. Maybe you should just get a lawyer." He promised to call me back later. He never did. My other friends responded with variations of the same. Some ghosted me completely. Others sent brief texts saying they needed space or had to respect Jessica during this time. A few were more direct. "I cannot be associated with someone accused of something like this." My roommates, guys I had lived with for 2 years, left a note on my door asking me to find somewhere else to live by the end of the week. "We just do not feel comfortable anymore," they wrote, not even brave enough to say it to my face. My parents lived in Michigan too far to offer immediate support. They were concerned and confused when I called them, but I could hear the doubt in their voices too. "Are you sure nothing happened, Frank? Maybe there was a misunderstanding. People do not usually make these things up." Their uncertainty cut deeper than the outright rejection from others. The neighbors in my apartment complex started giving me cold stares. Anonymous notes appeared under my door. "Predator living in Unit 304 and we know what you did." I started taking the back stairs to avoid seeing anyone. My social media accounts became unbearable. Direct messages calling me every vile name imaginable. Comments under old posts telling me to kill myself. People I had known since freshman year publicly cutting ties with me through dramatic announcements. I finally deactivated everything, cutting off one of my last connections to my former life. The only person who showed me any kindness was my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez. She brought me dinner one night when she noticed I had not left my apartment for days. "I raised 4 boys," she told me. "I know when someone has a good heart. Whatever they are saying about you, I do not believe it." Her small act of kindness made me break down in tears. It had been weeks since anyone had shown me basic human decency. I had never felt so utterly alone. I tried to contact Jessica repeatedly in those early days. I called from payphones, sent emails from new addresses, even wrote her a letter explaining what really happened that night. Everything went unanswered. I even tried to reach out to her parents, thinking they at least might listen, but they threatened to call the police if I did not stop harassing their family. The university investigation was a joke. I was invited to a hearing where 3 administrators and 2 student representatives sat in judgment. They had already collected statements from Amanda, Jessica, and apparently several witnesses who claimed they saw me following Amanda at the party. When I tried to explain the timeline of events, how I was never alone with Amanda, except for those few minutes in the hallway, I was interrupted repeatedly. "Mr. Bennett, please stick to answering the questions asked." When I pointed out the inconsistencies in Amanda's story, I was told, "We are not here to put the victim on trial." My academic advisor, Professor Merritt, who had previously written me glowing recommendation letters for scholarships, declined my request for a character reference. "I need to remain neutral in this situation," he explained via email. The entire hearing lasted 45 minutes. 1 week later, I received the decision expulsion, effective immediately, with a permanent mark on my academic record indicating I had violated the university's sexual misconduct policy. My student ID was deactivated. My scholarship was revoked. 4 years of hard work gone. The same day, Walker Engineering sent a formal termination letter. They had initially placed me on unpaid leave, but with the university's decision, they saw no reason to wait for the outcome of the police investigation. My desk had already been cleared out, my projects reassigned. I sat in my nearly empty apartment that night, staring at a bottle of sleeping pills I had gotten months ago during finals week when stress kept me awake. It would be so easy to just swallow them all to stop feeling this overwhelming pain and injustice. What did I have left to live for anyway? It was Mrs. Rodriguez's knock that pulled me back from the edge. She had made tamales, and insisted I eat at least one while it was still hot. That small moment of human connection was enough to get me through the night. Just one night at first, then another, then another. I could no longer afford my apartment without my job or student housing. I found a tiny studio in a rundown building on the edge of town, the only place that did not do background checks or call references. The bathroom ceiling leaked the neighbors, fought loudly at all hours, and I found mouse droppings in my kitchen cabinets daily, but it was shelter. With my degree unfinished and a reputation in tatters, my job options were severely limited. I eventually found work at a gas station on the midnight to 8 a.m. shift. The owner did not care about my situation, as long as I showed up on time and did not steal. The pay was barely enough to cover rent and ramen noodles. Every day was a struggle against overwhelming anxiety and depression. I jumped whenever someone entered the gas station. I avoided eye contact with strangers. I slept fitfully during daylight hours, plagued by nightmares where I was being chased by faceless accusers. The simplest tasks felt insurmountable. I consulted with a lawyer I could barely afford. After reviewing my case, he seemed pessimistic. Without evidence contradicting her story, it is your word against hers, and right now the world is inclined to believe her. He suggested I focus on the police investigation, which was moving at a glacial pace. I started documenting every inconsistency I could find in Amanda's story. The layout of the house made her claims about where the assault happened impossible. The timeline did not add up. There were dozens of potential witnesses who must have seen something. But without access to the official statements or the ability to contact people from my former life, I hit dead end after dead end. My parents suggested I move back to Michigan, start fresh somewhere new. But running away felt like admitting guilt. I was innocent. I needed that truth to come out, not just for my future, but for my sanity. To maintain some sense of control, I developed small rituals. Every morning I would splurge on a decent cup of coffee from the diner near my apartment. Every evening I would walk 3 miles around a nearby park regardless of weather. I started a journal pouring out my thoughts and feelings when they became too overwhelming to contain. I also found an online support group for people who had been falsely accused. Reading their stories made me feel less alone, though many of their situations had never been resolved. They had simply learned to live with the cloud of suspicion forever hanging over them. The thought of that being my future was unbearable. Through all this darkness, unexpected light emerged in the form of a regular customer at my gas station. Marcus came in every night around 3 a.m. for coffee and a microwave burrito. He was a large, intimidating man with a scar running down his left cheek, but he always thanked me by name and left the exact change. One night after I had been working there about 2 months, he looked at me more closely than usual. "You are Frank Bennett, right? The guy from Texas State who got expelled." My heart sank. Here it was, the confrontation I had been dreading. I braced myself for accusations or threats. "Yes, that is me. But whatever you think you know about me is not true." To my shock, Marcus pulled up a stool to the counter. "Tell me your side." Maybe it was the late hour or the months of isolation or just the simple human dignity of being asked for my perspective, but everything poured out of me. The real story of that night, the aftermath, the complete destruction of my life. By the end, I was fighting back tears. Marcus listened without interruption. When I finished, he said something no one else had bothered to say: "I believe you." He introduced himself properly then. Marcus Dawson, private investigator. He explained that his younger brother had been falsely accused of something similar years ago. His brother did not survive the experience, ending his life before the truth could come out. Since then, Marcus had developed a personal interest in cases like mine. The legal system and these university tribunals, they are not designed to find the truth, he explained. They are designed to process cases and minimize liability. But there are ways to get at the truth if you know how to look. Marcus offered to help me investigate informally. No charge, just a few hours of his professional expertise. It was the first real hope I had felt in months. We started meeting regularly, building a methodical approach to re-examining the evidence. Marcus had contacts and resources I lacked. He could approach people without the stigma attached to my name. He could ask questions that would be immediately dismissed coming from me. Slowly, we began constructing a timeline that directly contradicted Amanda's claims. For the first time since that terrible day, I allowed myself to believe that vindication might be possible. Not just in my heart, where I had always known the truth, but in the eyes of the world that had so quickly condemned me. The breakthrough came 3 months into our investigation. Marcus located Jessica's cousin Zach, who had attended the party that night. Unlike most people associated with Jessica's family, Zach agreed to meet with Marcus, albeit reluctantly. Over coffee at a neutral location, Zach admitted something crucial: he had seen Amanda following me into the hallway that night. He had also seen me emerge alone less than 5 minutes later, looking uncomfortable but not guilty. Most importantly, he had been filming party footage on his phone for a family montage, and had inadvertently captured timestamps that contradicted Amanda's timeline completely. I always thought something was off about her story, Zach confessed. But man, the family pressure was intense. Jessica was devastated. Her parents were on the warpath. It was easier to just go along with it. Zach agreed to provide a copy of the video footage. It was not definitive proof of innocence, but it punched significant holes in Amanda's narrative. Combined with the house layout that Marcus had mapped out, it made her description of events physically impossible. Our next significant find came through Amanda's roommate, Rachel. Marcus approached her carefully, presenting himself as someone conducting a general campus safety review. Their conversation gradually turned to Amanda, and Rachel revealed something disturbing. Amanda had a weird obsession with her sister's boyfriend, Rachel told Marcus. She had his class schedule printed out and would sometimes position herself to accidentally run into him. She talked about him constantly, wondering what Jessica had done to deserve him. I thought it was just sister jealousy, but it got pretty intense. Rachel also mentioned a diary that Amanda kept locked in her desk drawer. She wrote in it every night. After the whole incident, she became super protective of it, would not let anyone near her desk. It took some careful persuasion and assurances of anonymity, but Rachel eventually agreed to look for the diary during Amanda's weekend trip home. What she found and photographed for us was damning. Page after page of fantasies about me, resentment toward Jessica, and most incriminating of all, the calculated plan to accuse me after I rejected her advances. He thinks he is too good for me, one entry read. Always polite, always perfect, Frank. Well, we will see how perfect everyone thinks he is after Saturday. If I cannot have him, Jessica does not get to have him either. Rachel also revealed this was not the first time Amanda had made questionable claims about male attention. There was this professor last semester she claimed was hitting on her. She reported him to the department, but then dropped it when they asked for specific instances. There was a guy in our dorm. Too similar situation. With Marcus's guidance, we compiled everything into a comprehensive evidence file. The contradictory timeline, the physical impossibility of Amanda's claims, the diary entries showing premeditation, Rachel's testimony about prior false claims. It was overwhelming when viewed together. The question now was how to proceed. Going public might bring attention, but could also backfire. Taking it directly to the university seemed pointless, given how they had handled the original investigation. The police were our best option, but I was terrified they would dismiss it as a desperate attempt to clear my name. Marcus connected me with Eliana Vasquez, an attorney who specialized in false accusations and worked pro bono for select cases. After reviewing our evidence, she agreed to represent me. This is one of the most compelling innocence cases I have seen, she told me. We have clear evidence of motive, premeditation, and fabrication. With Eliana's help, we filed a formal appeal with both the university and the police department. The police, at least, were obligated to investigate new evidence. The university was under no such obligation, but had a public relations incentive to at least appear responsive. For weeks, nothing happened. Then suddenly everything happened at once. The detective handling my case called Amanda in for additional questioning, confronting her with the new evidence. With her diary entries in front of her, and the timeline inconsistencies impossible to explain away, Amanda broke down. Jessica was present during this interview, at Amanda's request. She heard everything firsthand as her sister admitted to fabricating the entire accusation out of jealousy and obsession. Amanda confessed to planning it for weeks, to deliberately drinking to give herself courage, to cornering me in the hallway, and then twisting my rejection into an assault claim. The detective called me personally afterward. Mr. Bennett, all charges are being dropped. We will be issuing a formal statement, clearing your name. I want to personally apologize for how this case was handled. The university received the police report the next day. Within hours, news outlets that had previously published vague stories about sexual assault allegations at Texas State were running new headlines. False accusation revealed. Student wrongfully expelled, university investigation protocols. Questioned. Social media, which had once been the vehicle of my destruction, now amplified my vindication. The same people who had called me a predator were sharing articles about my innocence, often without acknowledging their role in my public crucifixion. The hashtag number Justice for Frank started trending locally. My emotions were a hurricane. Relief, vindication, anger, bitterness, exhaustion. After 9 months of fighting to be heard, the truth was finally acknowledged, but the damage had been done. I could not get back the lost time, the missed opportunities, the mental anguish. Jessica tried to call me repeatedly in the days that followed. I let it go to voicemail each time. When I finally listened to her messages, they were tearful apologies and explanations. "I should have known better," she sobbed in one. "I should have trusted you. I was just so shocked, and Amanda was so convincing, and everyone was telling me to cut you off completely." Amanda was facing university disciplinary action, though criminal charges were complex, since false reporting laws in our state had specific requirements that might not be met. I made the decision not to press charges, not out of forgiveness, but because I wanted this chapter of my life to be over. I wanted to move forward without being dragged back into hearings and testimonies and reliving the trauma repeatedly. The university administration contacted me through AITAH. They offered immediate reinstatement with a clean record, as if they could simply erase the damage they had done with a keystroke. They also hinted at a private financial settlement to avoid potential litigation, though they never explicitly acknowledged wrongdoing. My former friends emerged from the woodwork one by one. Text messages, emails, voicemails full of explanations and justifications. I always had doubts but was afraid to speak up. I was just trying to support Jessica during a difficult time. You understand why I had to distance myself, right? Each message revealed more about their character than they probably intended. Walker Engineering called with a job offer. Not just my old position, but a promotion with higher pay. "We value loyalty and integrity," the HR director said without a hint of irony, "and we would be honored to have you back on our team." Jessica was the most persistent. After I ignored her calls and messages for 2 weeks, she appeared at the gas station during my shift. Seeing her again after all that time was like being hit by lightning. Despite everything, a part of me still loved the person I thought she was. "Please, Frank, just 10 minutes. Let me explain." We agreed to meet at a coffee shop the next day. She looked terrible, eyes puffy from crying, hair unwashed. She launched immediately into explanations and apologies. How Amanda had been so believable. How their parents had insisted she cut all contact with me. How she had been overwhelmed by the support for sexual assault survivors and afraid of being seen as betraying that cause. I listened silently until she finished. Then I asked the one question that had haunted me for months. "Did you ever, even for a moment, consider that I might be telling the truth?" Her hesitation was answer enough. "I wanted to believe you," she finally said. "But everyone was so convinced, and Amanda is my sister." In that moment, I realized our relationship was damaged beyond repair. The foundation of trust was completely shattered. I could forgive many things, but I could not forget that when it mattered most, she had not believed in me. "I hope you and Amanda both find peace," I told her as I stood to leave. "But I need to move forward with people who stood by me when it was difficult, not just when it became convenient." The look on her face suggested she had expected forgiveness, reconciliation, perhaps even gratitude for finally accepting the truth. She had not anticipated that her actions would have permanent consequences, that some betrayals cut too deep to heal. I took a similar approach with former friends. Some I declined to see at all. Others I met briefly to hear their apologies, but made clear that our friendship could never return to what it was. A select few who had expressed private doubts or shown small kindnesses during my isolation were granted a path to rebuilding trust, but with clear boundaries. My confrontation with the university dean was perhaps the most satisfying. With Eliana beside me, I declined their offer of simple reinstatement. Instead, I presented terms: public acknowledgement of their rush to judgment, revision of their investigation, procedures to better protect due process, and yes, financial compensation for the damage to my education and career. These terms are quite demanding, the dean said, looking uncomfortable. So was being expelled for something I did not do, I replied. They eventually agreed to most of my conditions. I would return the following semester to complete my degree. They would implement new investigation protocols that included stronger evidentiary standards. The financial settlement would cover my lost wages, additional living expenses, and therapy costs. Standing my ground instead of gratefully accepting whatever scraps they offered was empowering. For the first time in 9 months, I felt some control over my life again. The process of rebuilding after such complete destruction is slow and non-linear. There were days I felt strong and forward-looking, and days the anger and bitterness threatened to consume me. But gradually I reclaimed pieces of my life. I returned to the university the following January to complete my final semester. Walking onto campus that first day, I felt eyes on me everywhere. Some students avoided me entirely. Others approached to express support or apologize for believing the worst. Many simply stared, trying to reconcile the monster they had imagined with the ordinary student before them. I graduated with my engineering degree in May, a full year later than planned, but with a sense of accomplishment that no one could take from me. Several professors who had distanced themselves during the accusation now wrote glowing recommendations, never acknowledging their previous abandonment. I accepted their letters without comment. Walker Engineering honored their offer, and I started at a position higher than I would have achieved on my original track. Some coworkers were awkward around me at first, but the quality of my work eventually spoke for itself. Within 6 months, the accusations had become background noise rather than defining characteristics. I moved to a better apartment in a safer neighborhood. I bought new furniture, donated all the clothes I had worn during what I now called the dark months, and adopted a rescue dog named Cooper, who needed someone to trust as much as I did. The psychological healing was harder than the practical rebuilding. I started therapy to process the trauma, the betrayal, the lingering trust issues. Nightmares still woke me occasionally. Certain triggers could send me into panic attacks. Being alone with a woman I did not know well made me anxious, fearful of new false accusations. My therapist helped me develop tools for managing these responses without letting them control my life. You survived the worst-case scenario, she reminded me often. You lost everything and rebuilt. Nothing can take away that strength from you now. Trusting people again was perhaps the greatest challenge. I became highly selective about who I allowed into my life. Every new friendship was tested gradually, carefully, before I fully invested emotionally. Dating seemed impossible for a long time. How could I be vulnerable with someone after what happened? But life has a way of moving forward, even when we try to stand still. I maintained my friendship with Marcus, who had been instrumental in uncovering the truth. We met regularly for coffee or beers, discussing cases he was working on or just normal life stuff. He never once said "I told you so" when my cautious approach to new relationships proved wise. Mrs. Rodriguez, my elderly neighbor from the dark months, became something of a surrogate grandmother. I moved her into a better apartment in my new building when I discovered she was living with unreliable heat and security concerns. We had Sunday dinner together most weeks. Simple meals that nourished more than just the body. My parents moved from Michigan to a town 30 minutes away, wanting to be closer after nearly losing me twice, first to the accusation, and then to the despair that followed. Our relationship had been strained when they initially harbored doubts about my innocence, but we slowly rebuilt through honest conversations and their consistent presence in my new life. About a year after my name was cleared, I gave a small talk at a legal forum about the importance of due process and the presumption of innocence. It was terrifying to publicly revisit that period of my life, but the response was overwhelming. Other falsely accused individuals reached out, and I found purpose in helping them navigate systems designed to presume their guilt. 18 months after everything happened, I met Catherine at a charity event for a legal defense fund. She was a paralegal who had worked on cases similar to mine and understood the complex emotions I still carried. Our relationship developed slowly, built on mutual respect and careful communication. When I finally told her my full story, she listened without judgment and asked thoughtful questions rather than jumping to conclusions. I saw Amanda once unexpectedly at a shopping center. She had completed intensive therapy according to mutual acquaintances and had transferred to a university in another state. She looked up, recognized me, and froze. I simply nodded and continued walking. There was nothing left to say. Jessica was harder to avoid in our relatively small city. We occasionally saw each other at restaurants or community events. She always looked like she wanted to approach to try again for the forgiveness I could not give. I maintained a polite distance, exchanging brief nods, but never conversation. I heard through mutual connections that she and Amanda had eventually reconciled, working through their issues in family therapy. There are still difficult moments, days when the injustice feels fresh, when I wonder how different my life might have been without that interruption. Days when I find myself checking for exits in crowded rooms or flinching when someone raises their voice unexpectedly. The trauma does not disappear, it just becomes part of who you are. But there are beautiful moments too. Nights with Catherine watching terrible movies and laughing until our sides hurt. Solving complex engineering problems at work and feeling my brain fully engaged. Sunday afternoons with Cooper at the park, watching him run with pure joy. These moments remind me that while part of my life was stolen, the rest of it is still mine to live fully. The most profound change is in how I understand people now. I know that many will take the easy path of assumption rather than the harder path of critical thinking. I know that principles often crumble under social pressure. But I also know that genuine integrity reveals itself in crisis, not in comfort. Mrs. Rodriguez believed me when believing me offered her no benefit and potential social cost. Marcus invested time and expertise in my case when I could offer nothing in return. Rachel came forward with crucial evidence despite pressure to stay silent. These people showed me that while humanity can be deeply disappointing, it can also be surprisingly noble. I still struggle with forgiveness. Not for Amanda, whose mental health issues and jealousy created this nightmare. Strangely, she is almost easier to understand than the others. But for the institutions and individuals who failed at basic fairness, who abandoned critical thinking for the safety of the crowd, I find forgiveness more difficult. Perhaps it will come with time. Perhaps it never will. I have learned to be patient with my own healing. If you have stayed with me through this story, I hope it serves as a reminder that behind every accusation, every headline, every social media frenzy, are real human beings whose lives can be destroyed in an instant. Reserve judgment. Question narratives. Remember that our justice system was built on the principle that it is better for 10 guilty people to go free than for one innocent person to suffer unjustly. Have you ever stood alone when everyone around you believed the worst? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story touched you in any way, please consider subscribing to this channel and sharing this video with others who might need to hear that even when everything seems hopeless, the truth can still prevail. Thank you for listening, and remember that your compassion and critical thinking might someday be the lifeline someone like me desperately needs.